We usually think of the ragdoll as a triumph of genetic engineering. It is a creature built for comfort, designed for laps, and optimized for indoor living. If you hold one, you are holding a biological contradiction. For millions of years, nature designed the feline to be a perfect, tension-filled killing machine. Every muscle in a cat's body is built to snap, to react, to survive. But the ragdoll defies that entire evolutionary history. It is the only animal on Earth that has been engineered to do exactly one thing when it is picked up. Absolutely nothing. It goes limp. It surrenders. But there is one scenario where that surrender becomes dangerous. There is one element that does not care about how cute or expensive or docile an animal is. That element is water. And when the doll hits the water, a fascinating biological battle begins. To understand why this is such a critical moment, we have to look back much further than the 1960s breeding programs in California. We have to go back 10,000 years to the deserts of the Middle East. The ancestor of every house cat, the Felis sylvestris libica, lived in a world where water was scarce and usually dangerous. In the desert, standing water is a place where predators like crocodiles ambush their prey. But more importantly, water is a thief of heat. For a desert animal evolved to withstand dry heat, getting wet is a metabolic disaster. A wet coat loses its insulation. It becomes heavy. It slows down the lightning-fast reflexes a cat needs to survive. So, deep in the coating of every cat, even your gentle ragdoll, is a primal, flashing red warning light that says, "Stay dry or die." This brings us to the physical reality of the ragdoll. If you look at a breed like the Turkish van, you see a cat that nature prepared for the lake. They have a cashmere-like texture to their fur that is water-resistant. They have oversized paws that act like paddles. They are the Navy SEALs of the cat world. But the ragdoll? The ragdoll is wearing a tuxedo made of sponge. Their coat is semi-long, dense, and incredibly soft. It lacks the oily, water-repellent guard hairs that many outdoor breeds possess. When a ragdoll enters the water, that beautiful coat doesn't shed the liquid, it drinks it. Imagine jumping into a swimming pool wearing a winter coat, sweatpants, and heavy boots. That is what happens to a ragdoll in seconds. The water clings to the undercoat, adding significant weight to the animal almost instantly. The gravity shifts. The drag coefficient skyrockets. Physically, the ragdoll is the worst possible candidate for a swimmer. They are heavy-boned, low energy, and burdened by a coat that turns into a weighted blanket the moment it submerges. By all laws of physics, a ragdoll should panic, inhale water, and sink like a stone. But they don't. And this is where the story gets fascinating. The moment a ragdoll's paws lose contact with the solid ground and hit the liquid, a hidden switch flips. The Ann Baker software, the part of their brain that makes them floppy, sweet, and trusting, crashes immediately, and a much older, darker operating system reboots. It happens in a split second. The African Wildcat system takes over. If you have ever seen it happen, it is almost uncanny. The spine, usually so flexible and relaxed, suddenly rigidifies. The legs, which usually dangle lazily when you pick them up, begin a rhythmic, coordinated paddle. This isn't a chaotic splash. It is a genetically programmed stroke. The head locks into a high position, utilizing the neck muscles to keep the nose and mouth clear of the waterline. The tail, usually a magnificent plume of fluff, becomes a rudder, helping to stabilize their role in the water. You are no longer watching a lazy lap cat. You are watching a survival machine that has been dormant for generations, suddenly waking up because it has no other choice. It turns out you can breed out the aggression, you can breed out the desire to hunt, but you cannot breed out the physics of survival. The memory of how to swim isn't in their brain, it's in their spine. However, The most interesting part of this isn't that they can swim. It is how they swim. This is where we see the collision of their ancient instincts and their modern temperament. There is a massive psychological difference between panic and reflex. If a high-strung breed like a Siamese or a Bengal falls into a pool, they often choose panic. Panic is loud. It is chaotic. It is energy expensive. A panicked cat will thrash, claw at the water, and burn through their oxygen reserves in seconds. They are fighting the element, trying to climb out of the water as if it were a tree. But the ragdoll is different. Their famous low arousal temperament, the very thing that makes them so chill on your sofa, actually becomes a survival asset here. Instead of exploding into chaos, they often shift into a state of quiet, focused reflex. They don't waste energy screaming. They don't waste energy fighting the water. They simply surrender to the physics of the situation. They paddle, they breathe, they orient themselves. It is a strange, stoic kind of survival. They are not trying to conquer the water. They are simply enduring it until they find land. This efficiency, born from their inherent laziness, might actually make them safer in the water than their more athletic, high-strung cousins. There is another layer to this, one that is less about survival and more about trust. The whiskers of a cat are not just hairs, they are radar dishes. They detect air currents, barometric pressure, and proximity to objects. When a cat is submerged, this sensory system is blinded. The water pressure confuses the nerve endings. The weight of the wet fur dulls their sense of touch. It is a sensory overload of the worst kind. For a ragdoll, a cat that relies heavily on its bond with you for security, this is a moment of profound betrayal. If you have ever tried to bathe a ragdoll, you know the look. It is not the look of anger you get from a street cat. It is a look of confusion. I thought we had a deal, their eyes seem to say. I am soft, I am good, I do not scratch the furniture, and in exchange, you keep me safe and dry. When that contract is broken, even for a bath, you can see the conflict in their eyes. They want to trust you, but every cell in their body is screaming that this wet environment is wrong. It is a testament to their breeding that, even when wet and miserable, a ragdoll is more likely to look at you with sad resignation than to turn around and bite you. They will swim toward you, not to attack, but because you are still their only island of safety in a world that is suddenly turned fluid. Once the ordeal is over and the ragdoll is back on dry land, the wild software doesn't just turn off instantly. You will see a ritual that is as old as the species itself, the restoration of dignity. A wet cat is a vulnerable cat. They smell different, they look smaller, their silhouette is broken. The immediate, frantic grooming that follows a dip in the water is not just about drying off. It is about removing the scent of the water, the chemicals, the chlorine, the pond smell, and restoring their own scent profile. They are rebuilding their identity. They are fluffing their coat back up to regain their size, their insulation, and their status. So if your ragdoll falls in, they won't sink. The ghost of their ancestors will keep them afloat, and their own calm nature will keep them efficient. But witnessing it is a stark reminder. We often project human emotions onto our pets. We think of them as babies, as friends, as family members, and they are those things. But underneath all that silk and the blue eyes and the floppy behavior, there is still a wild animal waiting for a reason to come out. We built them to be soft. We built them to be loving, but nature made them waterproof. It forces us to appreciate them in a new light. When you see your ragdoll sleeping on the rug, looking like a discarded toy, remember that inside that soft exterior is a survival mechanism that has outlasted empires. They choose to be gentle. They choose to be floppy. But if the world demands it, they can still be a cat. Just keep the lid on the aquarium, because even though they can swim, and even though they are surprisingly good at it, they would much rather be dry, warm, and waiting for you to open a can of food.